Sweet Victory. That's the name of the battle pass right now. Go ahead and grab that and see what happens as you win your games, just like the Europeans did. And now as we move on to North America, we take a look at some of these teams and what they're trying to find. My name's Tom Battinger. I'm joined here by Taco. How you doing, bud?
Feeling pretty good. Already saw a little bit of that European action for the day, so really excited to see what North America has in store for us.
Yeah, we got a fun game going on right now. It's going to be Big Money Esports next to one of the cooler logos in the game. That's EG Dubs up there on top. It's a Dachshund, and I love that. They got 1 game to none so far. Big Money Esports have yet to find their win, and so this could be where the Leprechauns get lucky.
On the other hand, you've got Fatal Ambition leading the way here. Hype Unit shortly after them, and Blanche Fan Club with Sanguine kind of trailing towards the bottom there. But a lot of W's in these win columns so far, although we are relatively early on here in Phase 2. It's kind of clear that these teams are still rather tight in their competition.
Exactly. Everybody going to kind of settle out towards the end of the season most likely. But right now as we start things off, like you said, everybody kind of in that scrum waiting to pull ahead from each other. So without further ado, let's get into game number 1. Doesn't rhyme, but we'll see how it works out. Eboys W. Is that it? Eboys W?
Not really a fan of the Eboys Gone Wild. Sure. Has a little bit more of a ring to it than Ebog. Bog kind of makes me think of a swamp.
Makes me think of Chernobog for sure. Which we did see earlier in the day. The mid lane has been plagued, is the word I'm going to use, by hunters in that role, and the mages have kind of shifted over to the long lane in the carry position.
That's the real plague.
Yeah, we'll see if that continues to go in this direction. The Jonqui, though, banned out first and foremost. This has been one of the largest culprits of that long lane mage. How do you feel?
I really like seeing the Jonqui strip away. Just provides so much free farm capabilities whenever he does wind up in dueling. Even in mid lane, he's still incredibly annoying to deal with. Not to mention his flexibility options that he can be utilized in solo if need be. But a lot of, I think, priority here towards stripping away some of those interchangeable pick options. I mean, Odin, Erlong, Zhang, these are all gods that kind of control space. And Big Money Esports, I think, have been a team kind of on the up and up with their team fighting. So it's a good idea from the E-Boys to take out a lot of those team fighting presences, especially if you wanted the Isis first pick.
That's where I was going to go. The Odin is a character that comes up and down or in and out of the meta, kind of independent of changes to Odin. It's more about changes to other characters. Isis is one of the best characters in the game at worst, one of the best characters in the mid lane. And with Odin kind of preys on Isis. So where Odin might not be applicable elsewhere, if you're going to first pick the Isis, it's certainly nice to get the Raven guy off the board.
Whew, a lot of confidence, though, in this current draft, seeing the Horus and the Awilix. There's a really consistent setup factor here for Awilix to look for the feather steps and gravity surges. Not only that, but I absolutely love the Awilix and Isis pairing. There's so much early game presence and damage there between the Wing Gust and Feather Step alone. But more importantly, anyone who does try to leap away, if Big Money Esports were to invest towards some other hunters or some other escape option gods, well, Awilix is there to grab them right back into that circle of protections.
Nike's going to look to be offensive with that jump. Awilix can pull him in. And, of course, Horus has a knockup of his own that can enable the Awilix to be a little bit more aggressive as well. Horus finds a target, charges him, knocks him up, and Awilix pulls him into the back line. I like this combo, and I hope it's as effective in practice as it is on paper. First round of the draft done. Isis, Horus, and Awilix here for Eboys, and then Big Money going to go the way of Muzen, Cobb, Nike, and Khepri. Teams will look to ban out in the second phase. We've got no Jingwei and no Arthur, and then Eboys going to take a look at some of the carries in the Ratatasker and the Merlin.
Kerninos could be a decent pick here for Eboys Gone Wild. Hasn't really been too popular on the console as of late, but really like Kerninos' box out potential against the Muzen Cop, even up against Soul, having that passive where the closer you get, the more damage you're going to deal, so you want to play up close and personal anyway. Nike and Khepri are all gods. They're going to want to stand in the face of you, and Cern is so fantastic into that Khepri alone, but I like the Apollo switch up as well for Eboys. I think that the global presence is definitely a good thing to keep in mind. It's going to force Big Money to maybe not play as aggressively around early game buff and baits.
I like Apollo here. Apollo's going to deal well with the Khepri. Now, obviously, you're silenced when you're being grabbed, but if your other teammates grab, you can mez out the Khepri pull, and then Ares, of course, is going to take the Khepri pull off the table. Ares has been one of my favorite characters, I think, with the midseason change. Simply because, sure, Isis got better at what she does, but Ares has been able to do different things, and that's fun.
I'm amazed, though, that Ares made it this deep into the draft, but Console just having their own scheme, I think, when it comes to picks and bans. Seeing that Pele lock in, though, for big money is keeping that early game pressure strong.
Well, we'll see if Rover or the Leprechauns will do it. Game number 1, off to you guys on the mic.
Thank you, Tom. Thank you, Taco. It's Finch and Anatoly as we move into game number 1 between Ebog, as they said, Toli, and Big Money Esports. And the Apollo picked up. You know, I was wondering if we'd see more of him. He's able to stack Audacity easier now. Great rotational ability. Toli, you like seeing him?
I do, personally. I feel like there's a lot of injustice by not picking him, especially when there's Silver Branch Bow always on the table, where you could get a little bit of extra power based off of your attack speed during the Audacity for those 6 basic attacks. But a lot of global pressure recently introduced with Chernobog, so yeah, Apollo is a great way to combat that, especially when there's immobile hunters such as the Muzen Cobb in mid.
And we could potentially see some nice rotations from this draft, right? The Apollo, as you said, but also the Horus.
Sure.
The ultimate's not always that big of a deal for him. You know, his base kit's so strong, you don't always need it. But if you can find 1 or 2 nice ults with it, I already feel like that's enough, and maybe we'll see some shenanigans.
The mobility is good when you're trying to save maybe an Ares or an Isis that could be kind of in the middle of nowhere in the Bermuda Triangle, but if anything, it's up to how these 2 junglers are going to start controlling the pacing of the game. Pele, very quick, but Awilix having the Suku can match.
They're already having different ideas about how to try and establish this early pressure. Relating started off with Zen over in the duo lane, trying to get some pressure over Axiom, whereas Jelly on the other side was in mid lane the whole time, helping out Privative. So we'll see which one of those works out better. Probably mid, you're closer to more buffs, I'd imagine.
Yes, you want to be able to control red buffs if you can, and an Isis with a red buff, very scary. But as is a Muzen Cobb, so we're going to see probably just a slow and casual farming game until somebody decides to be aggressive to the point of invading. But despite buffs going, neutral, Totem of Ku goes the other way of this Ares solo lane, by the way.
Axiom might be in a bit of trouble. Relating has shown up yet again. The knockup's there, but Disapparate buys time. But Zen's right here and waiting. They get a little mini root with the feather step, and that sets up for first blood. Zen gets the credit.
2 minutes in, and without purification beats for another 150 seconds, I wouldn't be surprised to see Relating waiting around the corner to look for round 2, especially if InMyZen with that first blood bounty backs earlier than he probably is used to finish off those boots.
Timing is there for him, as Nano might now be in a little bit of trouble as well. Jelly's waiting, but Nano makes it back underneath the tier 1 tower. I don't even know if he recognized he was in trouble. Just kind of had the right positioning there in lane and is able to make it out of there. But Isis, another one whose value has risen lately. Maybe she'll make it there in time to defend this red buff.
Possible. She did use a couple of abilities to clear out the wave in mid lane, and she got it with the Wind Gust, Finch.
Gets there just in time and picks up the buff. No stun off the Spirit Ball, and that sprint popped by Big Money, so kind of a bit used from them there without finding much on the back end, since they didn't get the actual buff itself, and they dropped sprint.
Big Money definitely needed that red buff invade after giving up first blood to keep themselves a little bit relevant in this game. It's not too far out of the imagination to get back into this one, but that was a good way to start it off. And you were mentioning the popularity of Isis being risen, and I think outside of obviously some of the buff changes to her passive, to her silence, is also the fact that she has a good matchup in the set up against the Pele. She's immune to knockups during the Wind Gust.
And it feels quite strong as Vultiee gets pulled back in by Beaudilla. And the lockdown with the root, and that means it's Pele's turn. No ultimate, but she might not even need it. No, the Horus dashes all the way back to lane and heals. Yeah, if you want some more examples of why Horus is good at being played more, there you go.
I think Vultiee was screaming at Nano to come closer
yeah.
so I can dash to you, you fool. But he finally got there, and on top of that, still needed a little bit of extra defensive measures, had the shell available to safely escape under his own tier 1 tower.
Horus has 2 of those, by the way. That's the dash, the longer one that you can see that gets him to for the heal, but the other one's the dash. into the stun, which usually sets up for the knockup. So he has some mobility there in his kit. He can get around a little bit safer than some other supports at times, because that one can go over walls even to get towards allies. He has a lot of options. I think that's part of why he's been valued so much.
Trying to think about the late game is Nano rushing this Book of Thoth up against Privative. That's going to go for an ability-focused build as well in the form of Transcendence. A lot of mana for both of these mid-gods. One Hunter, one Mage.
Tale as old as time, perhaps, is how do you try and establish pressure in that middle lane. But maybe not quite in this fashion as we've seen lately, as you can play whatever you want, just about anywhere you want right now in this current meta that we have. And Nano with this Isis should be able to do okay trying to match the Muzen comp. Maybe it comes down more to who's getting more help. And that was the thread we followed earlier, where these junglers were in the early game, and because they got the pick and duo, it worked out more for Ebog as Beaudilla's forced to retreat, to dash away. But it's Vultiee who's still aggressive, forces Jelly to actually use the ultimate defensively. That's a big win. Good
stun as well. Jelly tried to gank the mid lane earlier, level 3, didn't have the ultimate, and this time at least has the ultimate to escape. That's the one problem with Pele, is if you're not using your blink, very difficult to find any playmaking opportunities or the ultimate. And a very smart idea to go on to Beaudilla before he's level 5 for the Scarab's Blessing, poking him out to force out an escape.
The Scarab's Blessing, though, is going to become important once it's finally online, as it is now. That can answer a lot of what Relating wants to do. He pulls in that single target, and they blow him up pretty quickly. Vultiee, very good at locking down one person. If he's on time, Beaudilla, I mean, with those Scarab's Blessings, he might be able to cut into this Ebog early.
Fun matchup between these two soul laners, the Ares versus Nike matchup.
Yeah.
You don't really want to get too close to the Ares as a Nike.
Yeah, I guess he can pull you in the lane, sure.
Especially
the tower.
When Ares is like about to finish off his, what I would guess would be the Shoes of Magi for extra penetration. Level 7 with 4 points in those chains. You're looking at, I think, 85 damage per tick, and that's a lot.
Yeah, I think Original just teleported back in just now, too, so he really is taking his time with wherever it is he wants to go after this Warrior's Blessing. Meanwhile, Jabami already has this Runic finished. And Original, looking for some more aggression, has already used the ultimate, so there is no CC immunity. You're definitely getting pulled. And now Jabami is trying to fight his way back out of here. The flames are ticking for extra damage. No way to live. And that's the second one on the board for Ebog.
I'm really surprised that he didn't buy anything. Can we look at how much gold in hand Original has, right? Maybe the calculation was like, oh no, I have to teleport back because my jungler is here looking for a gank, so better to be there without any items as opposed to delaying the gank with an item.
You're right. It's very unusual to see nothing bought. I mean, especially with just boots. You know, you can buy tier 2 boots and be okay, so... You know, certainly a bit odd, but it works out for them. They're the aggressors in that fight, and they get the kill, so hard to believe, but it does end up working with a little bit of help there from Relating.
All right, so this is either going to be a mystical male.
Okay.
Or a mystical male.
It's going to be mystical.
It's going to be a mystical male pitch. I'm actually really excited about this. Stacking up the aura to get the 40 extra magical power from the Ares passive and just extra magical damage around the Ares.
It's a good point. Ares does love to build those aura items, as Jabami took an early spill here on the Nike, who's also had some changes. You just saw the shield used on that second ability.
It could also be Sovereignty potentially, but in the solo lane, you don't really want to build that item, considering that you're not really gaining that much value because you're not rotating to apply that HP 5.
Now it's Big Money's turn to gank the short lane, and it's to the detriment of Original Spartan. He ends up going down. Beaudilla gets the kill credit. Probably not ideal, but not too big of a deal.
Not too bad of an idea to try to pressure out any soul laner that's just used their ultimate and teleport. So without both, Spartan going to be struggling a little bit now, allowing Jabami to catch back up into this laning phase, having to build Runic Shield to really mitigate all this Ares damage.
It's been working at least in that last engagement. We'll see if it continues to, as now Ebog have at least considered the Gold Fury. They drop it for now. They want to see if they can bait Big Money in. Vultiee dashes. That's both of them down to the knockup. Relating pulls Beaudilla back in. They proc the ultimate on purpose. They want the fight, but it's just not enough to kill off the Isis ult. That forces Relating to commit the dash, and now Jelly can hunt him down. There's no ult for Jelly, though, and over the wall comes Vultiee. They keep everyone alive.
A clean pick. Even through the Scarab's Blessing, Ebog is able to just disengage cleanly. Not going to pressure past that point for any towers or any buff invades. But at 9 minutes in, this is a good way to really just like flex your guns at them, just to show that your team fighting power is superior.
And it really is, and a lot of that just comes from what Horus is able to do, but also Isis. She just feels so good in those jungle skirmishes.
And that fight was with an ultimate from Isis that just like was a drop and pop.
Yes.
It wasn't the one that was fully charged with all the damage and all the healing. Once these longer team fights pan out around the Gold Fury Fire Giant area where it will be fully charged, you don't want to be in that circle, and Beaudilla can't be even close to saving anybody there.
That's the Isis ult that you know, that me and Mixer Chat are much more used to seeing in our casual games. The instant pop Isis ult, right? The one we see in SPL and in console here, where they're planning it out and they're charging it all the way up, and it's used to secure objectives. I mean, we don't see that.
It's like the glow up ult, you know what I mean? Like, be careful who you make fun of in high school.
Uh-oh, some trouble on the left-hand side for Axiom as relating ganks yet again. Zen has had an easy lane here so far, getting all this help from the Awilix. Another kill onto the Soul.
A good look if you're Zen rushing out. Also, fail not to get a little bit of extra critical strike and apply the critical strike passive onto his teammates, and here comes the glow up.
It's going to be very difficult to out-secure this Isis ultimate. It's possible a bit early for the actual secure, but it doesn't matter. Isis also able to zone effectively with the silence and the spirit ball.
Between the slows and the stuns, very difficult for Beaudilla to really get past that, because without real vision control around that Gold Fury, he doesn't know if that might even be a trap, unless he sees the Isis ultimate already on the ground.
That's right, you're not even quite sure how close they are to taking the objective itself. And with Axiom dead, the best person at kind of knowing how much is committed there is already gone. Just a good call from Ebog, but now they might be in trouble. That's the beach forced out from Nano. In response, Jelly blinks in, knows that the knockup's good here, even gets the Scarab's blessing so she can hard commit and let it proc to retreat. But Horus wants more.
Oh, he's gonna land it. Gets Jelly with the knockup as well. Needs to land the So Beautiful, and does at least trade out his mid laner's life.
2-0-2 now for this Apollo for InMyZen. As you mentioned, working on that fail not, even without the passive after you ult, it's just a good item. 45 power, a bunch of crit chance all being added. That's a big spike for him.
It's so difficult as a hunter to really put cooldown reduction into your build. So fail not providing that 20% CDR with the power, with the crit, it's just an added little touch to every hunter. And for an Apollo player to get 20% cooldown reduction, even though he's not really known as an ability-based hunter that has like crazy amount of scaling and damage, it's more about just having access to those abilities and being just more utility-based throughout a team fight, boosting your own teammates with your dash, slowing your enemies with a dash, mezzing people depending on if they have channeling abilities or not, doesn't matter, but just for disengage purposes.
It does feel like a bit of an overlooked part of Apollo's kit, how many other ways he can contribute in those fights. So hopefully we'll get to see Zen make good use of that additional CDR, as so far it's been all Ebog in terms of who's winning the fight, who's going for objectives, but they're not that far ahead in terms of gold. It's only about 2,000 that they've pulled ahead, and experience is actually dead even. If you're big money and this is how the early game's gone so far, maybe you don't feel too bad about it.
You should not be feeling bad if you're big money, honestly. You just can't afford to give up any more unnecessary picks once the next Fury is respawning. Another 500 gold going to Ebog. Not the end of the world still, I think, for big money, but like we mentioned, it's about not giving up the mid-game picks.
Drop the circle of protection, so they won't have it for this fight. Fire Giant's been procced as well, so his damage is in the mix. Jabami gets pulled back in. That's a lot to try and kill the Isis, and they don't even kill her.
The body
and now
block.
it's Jelly's turn. Almost was enough just with that ultimate.
Original body blocking out Jelly's ultimate because the target was Nano. Jelly wanted to get in there with that AoE Pele basic attacks and just rip apart this Isis that did not have that circular protection available.
It was almost enough anyway, really. That's how much damage Jelly was putting out with those cones, but as you said, a nice play. Stops getting in there for the confirm, but now they want relating. Beaudilla goes in first with the abduct, so he has no way to retreat. The ultimate's already been used to a sitting duck as relating gets the kill, and Horus closes the gap to get close to Privative here before the tier 1. But the AMC slowly makes his way back to tower and is A-okay.
Nobody really close to follow up. Red buff invade being looked upon, but big money already one step ahead of Ebog from that. that Fury due to respawn in a minute and a half time. So we'll see Beaudilla ready and willing to fight there, but he doesn't have that power spike play of the going for the Gauntlet of Thebes compared to Vultiee that's been stacking it up pretty well so far.
You're right. Beaudilla waiting on this. I almost don't know if it's going to be worth going for it this late. He'll certainly still get those stacks, but I mean, Vultee's got to be feeling good about the fact that he's going to have that Gauntlet of Thebes way ahead.
And you could tell he was definitely considering building into it, but he's thinking about how to survive these team fights. He has to go for this kind of selfish build of Magai's Cloak to prevent the pulls from Original, to prevent the setup from Nano. If he gets knocked up from Vultiee, all of a sudden he's going to get pulled. There's a lot of CC that's a serious threat forced into that Magai's Cloak.
And just think about the difference in the fights we've seen, Toli, when Scarab's Blessing gets to be used aggressively and when Beaudilla has to use it on himself. The fight where he put it on Jelly and said you're free to dive and then get the kill and you'll have the free disengage, that was way better than this where without any ultimate he just gets picked on his own. He needs this Magai's Cloak to give himself some more options. I think it might be the right call. And
already going into a different build, instead of finishing off the Gauntlet of Thebes, he's going for the Iron Mail, thinking about possibly an aura item though, as Beaudilla yet again caught.
Has to dash away with the Abduct. This root landing is good to buy yourself some time. That's the ultimate use from Original, but I don't think he had anyone in range. And now it's Jabami in trouble. Still has the leap to disengage. Supernova comes out as well, but on the back line, it's Jelly, but he has to disengage too. Scare's Blessing lets him leave, but that's the ultimate now on cooldown. Another fight for big money where they can't get everything to connect.
Even Jabami using that ultimate defensively. No one using their ultimates for kills at a big money esports. They're all using it to run away and overlapping those ultimates in an awkward way where, like, if I'm Jelly and I have a Scarab's Blessing on me, I'm not really running away with my own ultimate, my Volcanic Lightning. I'm going to allow the full duration of that Scarab's Blessing, and then if I really need to ultimate, then I'll consider it.
Especially when you pick on Kile. That is some defense, but it's aggressive. You want that silence to proc kind of in the fight to buy you some time. As over the wall comes Jabami. They've been looking for this red buff invade all game, Totally. They're not going to slow down here now. I
don't know about this invade here, Finch. There's an Isis ultimate they have to worry about. Only Privative with a Stinger ultimate available out of Big Money Esports.
And Jelly's going to need some backup. Vultiee locks it down. The silence is there too from the Isis. And Jelly has to disengage fully. Spirit Ball off the mark, but they're not done chasing yet. Zen has just pulled the Chariot so that he can find himself a target. He comes down way in the back, doesn't even get him, but still gets the kill.
He missed the landing, but it's okay because Jelly had no other options. He couldn't cancel that back. He just had to hope that the miss happened and the back would have went through. But now, with our second consecutive Fury, this is where things getting a little dicey for Big Money.
I agree. Ebog grabbed yet another Fury to pull further out in front. 4,000 gold, 2,500 experience. And what's looked like a bigger problem for me, even than Big Money maybe, losing objectives, is that they haven't seemed to be quite on the same page in these fights here, Totally. That's got to be cleaned up a little bit more too.
But they're trying to be aggressive. It's not stopping them, right? Like when they're getting engaged on, that's when the confusion happens. But when they have a dedicated plan, it seems that they are coordinated, executing that plan into action between the red buff invades. But they haven't found the necessary picks. Only 2 kills this game. A lot of it was because of the trade outs. Diving the tier 1 tower the one time is not enough, I think, at this high level competitive play in the console world.
If they want to try and make it to that top spot here in PS4 NA, the bar you compare yourself to is Nemesis. And they did not lose in Phase 1, and it's going to take someone playing at a really high level to get them to lose here in Phase 2. So I think you're right, Totally. When that's the bar, when that's the example for them, you got to hold them to a higher standard.
And honestly, their draft is fine. I think that they just need to be able to use it effectively. If they're constantly on the retreat, they're not really gaining value between this Pele Khepri combination. Muzen has been kind of a sleeper in terms of making any real damage. A lot of this damage for his team has been poke damage, not necessarily lethal damage.
Pyromancer goes down for Ebog yet again. Another neutral objective that goes their way. And you can start to see it culminating in their builds. I mean, they've got some nice anti-heal developed to make life even harder now for Big Money, particularly for Jelly, who wants to rely on that when he's in there diving and sustaining in the backline.
3 anti-healing items to be exact. Brawler Speed Stick from Relating. Hold that thought though. Fire Giant already almost done.
Circle of Protection and Frenzy all committed. Ebog grabbed the objective, and they're also helping Vultiee, they could probably take the fight, but Oregano, he gets nothing there with the pull. Was he put in combat and maybe...
No, he doesn't even have the blink.
You're right. That just, no one was there, unfortunate. As now Zen has the rest of the team grouped up here. They can push down this tier 1 and right. Question is, how much more do they want after?
Finch, a lot of people are trying to... So I get the whole idea of, like, you gotta inspire to be a pro, but just because Scream misses Ares' ultimate doesn't mean you have to follow his footsteps.
You're exactly right. Original gonna try and rectify those wrongs, I imagine, here as the tier 2 and right comes down. Either way, Mr. No, Ebog clearly in control in this one. About 5K up now with the Fire Giant around their waist. They can go grab those last 2 tier 1s in mid and the long lane, and even look for those tier 2s.
4,000 gold collectively from those 4 remaining towers to be piled on to Ebog's already commanding lead, I would say, at this stage of the game.
Sure.
So if they add Furies or Phoenixes on top of it, it's going to make those Phoenix defenses even more difficult.
And for me, totally, it just comes down to the difference between these two junglers. I think Relating has had a better idea of how he wants to play the map from minute 1 than Jelly has. Remember the early gank that he had on Axiom that worked out? They actually had 2 that got Zen ahead here in the long lane. He's helped out Nano more in the middle lane, despite that's where Jelly spent his time. I just think the more impactful jungler has been on Ebog.
And it's not as if Soul is an unsafe god to put in that long lane.
Right.
Having Disapparate, I believe it was, maybe it was a level 3 gank, but definitely had it available. But waiting out the Disapparate, great patience from Relating, not using the Feather Step right away. So there was a game plan going into the laning phase. It was executed properly. They transitioned well in the mid game, getting those 2 Furies, getting a Fire Giant, and now looking to close out the game.
For what it's worth, look at Privative way ahead in player damage and ahead of his lane opponent, and he hasn't been able to make that work for the team yet. They got to do more to set up around Privative in this Muzen Cobb, and it looks like they're going to do so around the tier 2 and left. They defend it and force Ebog away, at least for now.
It's just for the moment, Finch, because that tier 1 tower in mid is at its last legs. Now I believe the Order side want to 5-man push, use this level 20 Apollo at its full maximum potential.
3-0-2. Execution now finished to go along with Fail Not. Some much needed attack speed, even a little bit of pen when you consider the passive on the item. Tier 2 now in a bit of trouble, but it looks like Big Money don't want to give it up for free. Jabami goes in and immediately gets erased, but Nano needs help on the back. It's a 1-for-1, make it 2-for-1. Zen finds Jelly, and Ebog are not done pushing forward just yet. As long as they have this Apollo, they got the advantage.
Still Fire Giant around their waist for another minute and 10 seconds. Plenty of time as Spartan is burning away at his opponents. A little bit of a heal coming through from Vultiee, but I don't know if they feel confident without Nano's CC potential.
And they don't have to force down this mid Phoenix. The tier 2 and left is still a target they can go look for, but I think Ebog might be done with the push. They can come back towards this Fury instead, as Axiom actually gets caught out by Relating. That is a ton of damage from the Awilix already.
That was that a basic attack that did 400 damage, or was that the Feather Step?
Maybe so. I mean, he's got the Hydras. There's plenty of damage that's coming out.
It might have been the basic attack.
Yeah.
That's gotta hurt, honestly. If you're over there from Axiom, you're thanking your lucky stars that Disapparate just came into the safety net.
What a nice ability, as I believe that was the Oni Fury we just saw drop in favor here for Ebog. That will be the end of their Fire Giant push. They cleared up quite a few towers. It's only the tier 2 in the long lane that remains, Totally. And they'll be in great position to go for this next Fire Giant. Big Money without losing a Phoenix can still come out and defend it, but they're down 8,000 gold.
Against an Isis, the defense makes it so much more challenging.
It is tough.
With or without the circle of protection. Just the long-range Spirit Ball stuns, the silences as well.
Very unlikely that you steal it, right? Yeah.
Very unlikely.
Yeah.
Like before, when we saw the very first Gold Fury attempt, that was a premature circle of protection pop that didn't even matter because nobody was around the corner, but now at its final form, or almost final form at level 17, just way more damage. I don't see a world that Big Money can really get in there, unless everyone is already low from Ebog.
And this is going to be Aggro's pitch. He's the same level as support. Midlife must be hard, right? Wham, wham, wham. Nano's had a great game either way. I don't want to hear any of that mid lane complaining. been clearly impactful this time, as Fire Giant going to be spawning here in about another 15 seconds. But they don't care. Instead, they want to play around the Horus ultimate. Vultiee has already dropped it to isolate Privative. That's the priority target. He's most of the damage from Big Money, and they can't keep him alive. Zen falls earlier, and they never even got the Scarab's Blessing.
Beaudilla was just rotating around the long way from the side. He was not ready for that kind of aggression.
Right.
Ebog taking advantage of the misposition from Big Money.
That's so much of their damage. Now, Jelly is the next one up in terms of how much he's been outputting in these fights, but it's so much harder. We don't have that poke from Privative whittling them down and bringing them into range. This is where the control and even a bit of sustain from Ebog feels so good.
Big Money feeling confident, though, to at least try to delay Ebog and like, all right, go for the Fire Giant, but they're constantly funneling through this corridor. That's not the wisest idea when you have that power play advantage. You're either going for Fire Giant or you're going for Phoenix. Wasting that 5 to 10 seconds, probably not going to hurt Ebog at the end of the day, but it's something that does matter eventually, and it counts when you're trying to clean up the games in an effortless way.
Original now in a little bit of trouble in the jungle. He's been caught out by Jelly and is going to end up being the sacrificial lamb here for Ebog. I call him a sacrificial lamb, but that it's highly unnecessary, I'd imagine. They didn't need that to disengage or anything like that. It's just an unfortunate spill. Still, though, Ebog comfortably in control despite that.
Feeling very confident, honestly. I'm not too worried if with or without Original having Fire Giant. Definitely need him for the sieges. You need the cripple. You need the threat of the no escape, but don't need him with a Fire Giant. He's not the one dealing the damage to the objectives. Sustain is nice, but you already have Vultiee for that. You already have NanoBruv's Circle Protection for the healing. Also, the damage mitigation is a big key component. He hasn't been using it offensively in the sieges for a reason, because he has to worry about Jelly penetrating his own backline.
He'll have it there for him as a nice defensive tool. Take a look at Zen's build, though. The Deathbringer and the Wind Demon. He's all in on crit, and I don't see anything that'll slow him down on it. There's nothing like a Nemean, certainly no Thorns. Everyone is going to be melting to these crits now on the side of Big Money.
This is the one advantage that Hunters have, is like seeing the level 12 relics from everyone, specifically Soul Laners, because they're the ones that really want the Thorns. And once you see no Thorns, even with Hide and Amin, you're probably still tempted to kind of go crit anyway to blow people up. The one thing that I'm seeing is not too much penetration, like relying on the Executioner is his only pen.
You're right, that does make things a little bit more difficult for him in terms of getting to the crit. To that real point where it blows people up right away, but I don't think he'll feel too bad. Circle of Protection means that Ebog can start moving in. Phoenix already at half HP. Zen was the furthest one forward, but he's disengaged. Next up on the list is Original, and he does end up falling without even getting the ultimate to pull. But Nano responds. Jelly falls to make it 1-for-1.
The sniper Spirit Ball from Nano around that corner. Great use, though, of the Cursed Ankh from Beaudilla, preventing that healing. Original certainly needed that to be able to keep himself healthy throughout that fight, but that's not going to really stop Ebog after the 1-for-1.
It's a 4v4, and Jabami is the early target. He's stuck in the CC chain and pulled back in by Relating. Now it's 4v3, and they've been using Relating as the one pushing in mid, and Privative rotate over before. I don't know if you can send the AMC over to deal with that Awilix. I know he's got good ranged clear, but Relating wins the 1v1.
It definitely does, and now it's going to be another 4-on-3 on the left side. Still Fire Giant around their waist for another minute with a full wave. This should be a Phoenix demolished.
They move in for a few shots. Axiom can't afford to be forward because of the Spirit Ball. Yes, he's got the Scarab's Blessing there, but it falls off. That's left side Phoenix now for Ebog. Big Money. They do bend, but they don't fully buckle. They only lose one off that FG push.
Third time's the charm. With 3 waves, a whole minute and a half worth of defense from Big Money Esports. And you got to be feeling good if you're the Chaos side, because this is a huge disparity. Normally, teams that are behind this much will buckle and crumble under any little bit of pressure. So huge shout-outs to the defense.
That has been strong from Big Money. I think a lot of it is that they just have so much clear potential between Privative and Axiom, between the Stellar Burst, between him able to throw out those bees, or the swarm rather. So it's a lot of clear, and that means Ebog have to commit a good bit to safely threaten the Phoenix.
It's also hard for Ebog to really get in there and then stay in there. Without Original, you don't want to really send Vultiee in because he needs to kind of stay in the back line and heal, peel potentially. Relating is trying to set up with a long-range knock-up. He could always use Suko to disengage if he needs to, but not if he doesn't have Mad Guy's cloak up.
This might be trouble. Jabami has been chained. In comes Zen, even with the Signal of Zeus. There is no world you survive here. Nike goes back to the grave. Fire Giant's still 40 seconds away. Jabami will be spawned back up in 50, but still, that gives Ebog a pretty good window.
That is the good timing. I was about to say, like, that last ultimate might have been overkill. Not completely necessary for the last hit, but at the end of the day, better safe than sorry. Now they're not even going to wait. Yeah, they're going to force this objective, Finch.
Well, then this timing does turn around in their favor now, I think, to give themselves the 5v4 specifically without Nike and her shield to block those ranged autos. That can be so helpful when you're here trying to Phoenix Siege. Ebog start to force their way in. They don't have a minion wave yet, but Jelly responds by just going right for Zen. That's a perfect call. They take away a lot of the damage, and the Scarab's blessing there to keep Jelly alive. That's a big play from Big Money to keep themselves in this game.
That ultimate was clutch from Beaudilla to keep Jelly up alive. And Nano didn't even have time to react by throwing out his own circle of protection to save his hunter's life. Unfortunately, Zen didn't use the beads, didn't use the Aegis, didn't really respect the danger he was in.
Yeah, we're going to need to see a lot more of that from Jelly and Beaudilla in particular. That is what this Khepri into the Pele can do for your team. Remove the priority target from the other team. Zen never stood a chance. I mean, look at his relics. My man did not know he was in danger. There was no time.
Definitely.
And now Big Money has a chance to maybe fight around this FG. They'll have Jabami up before Ebog has Zen.
But keep in mind, Zen playing the Apollo has the Chariot to get into the action. 5 seconds back up. Big Money more interested in defending the left side lane, which was smart because during the right side Phoenix Siege, the wave was pushed up relatively far that there were no fire minions completely threatening the Titan room.
Well, this should be Fire Giant for Ebog. Orignal pushed everyone out from Big Money. Ultimate used. The Chariot brings Zen in time to actually take down the objective. And this one will be the enhanced version of the Fire Giant. We're past that 30-minute mark now, so minions aren't as important for getting past those backdoor protections.
That's right. You ignore at least 50% of it, which is something. As you're sitting at a level 20 Apollo, you would want that to be able to siege that one down. Nano, even playing the Ice as a mage this late in the game, has plenty of basic attack damage to take out those structures as well. And by seeing Privative all the way here on the left, that should be a trigger sign for Ebog to force the issue on right.
But it looks like they are going to be a little bit more patient with it. Privative should have time to move into position. Relics available for everyone except Original this time. Horrific only about 10 seconds away. That's a nice Spirit Ball. That's the Magai's proc taken away from Jelly.
Now he's going to have to heal up, and he can't play defense during this wave, but instead, Ebog didn't really recognize that. They think he's still like around the corner waiting for the blinking.
Now it's time to commit. Frenzy has been popped by Ebog, but in comes Big Money as well. Jelly is the furthest one forward and does get rezzed. Privative is able to melt Original Spartan on the front line, and suddenly Ebog has hit a bit of a wall here, Tully. They can't seem to break in. Perhaps Relating could catch Big Money sleeping and make a play on left Phoenix, or is he just pushing up the wave?
No, I think he's going to be pushing up the wave. He got if there was no wave, maybe he goes for the Phoenix, but instead he's just trying to see if he can bait anybody out. But man, what a defense yet again. Big Money this time without losing the right side Phoenix. Beaudilla and Jelly working so well together. And I'm a little surprised that Ebog doesn't go for the left side Phoenix. They went for the one closest to the Fire Giant. That was the healthy one. It wasn't the respawned one.
They went there right away after getting the FG, and in that moment it made some sense. But I think once Big Money got their defense set up, you go ahead and rotate over to the left side Phoenix.
There was a window where they could have got the right side Phoenix once they saw Privative split pushing. But that window was gone once they like staggered and waited around a little bit longer. And once they did wait, that's when they probably should have committed to the left side. It's like, all right, our window's gone. It's safer to get this left side Phoenix, because if I'm Big Money, I might not even defend the left side Phoenix. Ebog can all in that Phoenix. Kill it in like 3 Awilix shots, and then just, you know, continue to fight after that.
Instead, Big Money has been able to make a few plays. Axiom picked up that Chronos pendant before that last fight. I wonder how much all that extra cooldown helped out too, because he's now surpassed Privative in terms of damage in these fights. They've got 2 serious damage dealers to worry about on the side of Ebog, and you can tell because Original can't quite frontline as strong as they need him to. Maybe the Magi's and Witchblade a little bit too much in the middle in terms of giving prots as they need a little bit more.
If he had a blink instead of Horrific Emblem, he would be so much scarier to deal with, but Horrific makes a lot of sense as well. Reducing attack speed, you got a Soul to worry about. You also got the Muzen Cob, reduce their damage, reduce their attack speed. That 20,000 damage between those 2 players at the top could easily be about like 22, 23,000 without that Horrific Emblem.
Vultiee considering the Horus ultimate here. But it looks like they're going to try and hot switch over to the mid Phoenix and catch Big Money off guard, and they drop down Circle of Protection to give themselves a place to fight. That forces Jelly to be rezzed by the Scare's Blessing early. Original can't make it back to the team. Axiom catches him off with the Stellar Burst. I like the idea from Ebog, but it just doesn't work.
I like the idea as well. I think if you want to make it a little sweeter, tastier, this dish that they tried to serve to us, is if they did that in the mid lane and then switched over to the left side.
Phoenix,
like again, that would have made it just, instead of a 9.5 kind of judge call, it's like make that a 10.
I certainly like the idea. It's just that Big Money clearly were ready for it, and I don't think Horus Ultimate's fast enough to quite make that kind of play work, because everyone could just see it the whole time. But I do like the idea they were looking for. But it's Big Money with a bit of a play. They're going to come grab, it looks like this tier 2, and try and open up a couple of paths to victory for themselves.
They need to do something, because this is the 3rd time they successfully defended by killing Spartan and keeping everyone else alive. A tier 2 tower from 1,500 gold, 35 minutes in. Not the thing to be the most proud about, but it's something to make these Phoenixes now exposed and vulnerable. If this 1 pick becomes 2 picks, that Phoenix gonna go down.
Totally, I think they can be here for this Fire Giant defense this time. I mean, I know the waves are a little close on the left-hand side. They're still down a bit of gold, but Big Money, maybe they can fight.
Well, it's Ebog that's going to definitely fight now, because Jelly's not there, Axiom's not there. This is a 5-on-3.
Privative in some trouble, had to use Aegis very early on. And if they lose this Muzen comp here, that's so much of their damage potential that they lose. Nano catches him out. And just when it was looking like maybe Big Money can make a defense at FG, they're a little bit sloppy on the retreat. Ebog catches them out, and now it's FG.
There's a true saying when there's strength in numbers, and just like that, with a 2-player advantage, Ebog recognizing there was some either lazy backs or staggered backs. Everyone was looking for blue buff around the corner and split pushing the right side of the map with their, what was this, 4th Fire Giant of the game, still going to be enhanced. This Phoenix Siege should be a lot easier now in a 5-on-4.
And yet again, they're going towards the right Phoenix, the fully healthy one. Original goes for the pull, but finds no one to bring in. Axiom's quite low. I don't know if he can stick around. He at least throws in a Supernova, but now with the numbers advantage, Ebog move in and start looking for the right Phoenix. But Zen is able to find Jelly very early on. They've got Circle of Protection for more healing, and they bring down the right side Phoenix. That's a big play. They might even be able to just go for the end here.
They definitely could. 5 seconds left on Privative, and they're going to go for it, Finch.
Titan now at half HP, Big Money with only 3 members to stand on, can't keep them out. Ebog, they may have hit a wall for a while, but they're able to move in and take game number 1 over Big Money to take a 1-0 lead in this set.
They finally kept chipping away at this wall for it to crumble away. Big Money could not eventually withstand the full force from Ebog.
And that's just so tough, man, because they make the right call. They go grab the tier 2 after several really good defenses. The only problem is I think they forget how much rotational ability this comp had, and they get caught off not backing.
That was a rough play to see Privative getting picked off there. It wasn't the first time, too. That was the second time that he got picked off near that right side of the map, and with that, Ebog just needed that one small opportunity to finally close that game out.
He might have been the worst one that they could have lost there in that situation. It really hurt for him, but a nice win. We still have a lot more to go in this set, though. We're not even done with this match. Don't even talk about the set that's beyond that one. We're gonna take a quick break, and we'll be right back. SteelSeries, the official peripheral provider of the SMITE Console League.
Welcome back, folks, to Console League, halfway through, and we're halfway through the third game. Right now, I'm Tom, and I'm going to be joined by Taco as we discuss what's going on here after game number 1 in the books between Big Money Esports and Eboys Gone Wild.
Relatively back and forth matchup as well for game 1 here. We saw a lot of early game dominance, I think, from Eboys Gone Wild, but that's to no real surprises considering that they had that Isis Awilix combination. What really impressed me, though, was Big Money and the way that they kind of kept Eboys at bay for a decent period of time. They were finding really crucial picks to prevent Eboys from just outright sieging every objective on the map, but just could not maintain that same level throughout the entirety of game 1 and ultimately faltered.
It was intense watching some of these hard carries kind of come through and some of the big performances, so we'll see if those characters continue on in game number 2. P's and B's pretty pleased as we get ready for Eboys versus Big Money Esports.
I'll say one thing that is probably prone to change, though, is whether or not Relating's going to be able to get his signature Awilix one more time. I mean, that is his bread and butter of a god, and I can't blame him. Yeah. I mean, Awilix is pretty cute. And not only that, but she does a lot of damage to boot. So if you're trying to run that Isis back, whether or not Big Money lets Eboys get that one more time is another story, though.
Exactly. We'll definitely keep an eye on it. Last time Isis was the first overall selection. This time we're not even going to get there. Big Money says no way to Isis. Also said no to the Chronos. Eboys Gone Wild. Same bands as game number 1. And so the only thing changing here in game number 2 so far is the Isis band. Thor is gone as well. First pick overall, what are you expecting?
First pick is kind of open-ended. I mean, Jormungandr could be a solid selection pick option here for Eboys Gone Wild. Thor being taken away, though, kind of leads me to believe that, well, Merlin is someone that we haven't really seen prioritize in that first pick selection choice in quite some time. Definitely feel like a Scotty option might have been a little bit better suited here for Eboys Gone Wild because Zen is probably he's a pretty solid hunter player, so I think it would have been a nice option there. But
you've also got some of the selections. We've seen a lot of Ares as well prioritized. Even Anher kind of makes you scratch your head, right? We saw how popular Anher was at the mid-season invitational. Instead, it will be the Merlin first pick, and then Jormungandr a Muzen cop after the fact.
Yorm's going to provide some decent frontline capabilities there for the Muzen, but I love this Nike pickup from Eboys. Something to kind of harass and sit on top of that Muzen cop, not really allow the beat to have any sort of free cast potential, and a little bit of a soft knockup here is going to be the setup that Relating needs to feel confident in picking that Awilix one more time.
That Horus combination was pretty devastating, and I expected to be banned out by Big Money Esports here, if not selected. But at the end of the day, watching Horus go in, get the knockup and the guaranteed setup for Awilix was pretty problematic. So with the Khepri selection here for Big Money, I mean, to say that I expect a ban, putting it lightly, you have to ban the Horus, right?
I don't think you have to ban the Horus.
I mean, in a vacuum, I agree, you don't have to ban the Horus. After game number 1, okay, thank you. I think after game number 1, you got to ban the Horus Awilix combo, and Big Money will agree there.
Big Money, I think the main reason why I didn't feel as though the Horus was a necessary ban is because of the Khepri. Okay. Normally, Khepri should be enough to prevent, I think, the Awilix, because the gravity search can only happen one time to one given individual. So whoever Relating pulls, that's who should be receiving that Scare's Blessing. But Big Money support kind of had some struggles, I think, trying to find a well-timed Scare's Blessing. Didn't really see one in game 1, so have some concerns about this Khepri pickup here yet again for Big Money, but maybe game 1 was just the warm-up round.
Could be. 2 hard carries banned out as far as the junglers are concerned, and then 2 supports banned out by Big Money. The jungler of choice for the green team is going to be Pele. So a lot of speed there. Muzen Cobb, Pele, and Jormungandr are all going to chase you down. I like this idea. Big Money have to play good defense, though.
Big Money have to play good defense, but the same for Eboys Gone Wild. They need to play some sort of initiation here, and as far as their initiation is concerned, things are looking a little bit steep right now. Very dependent on this Nike for their setup of success. Ganesha also going to be very similar to that of a Horus. Still has that knockup capability to help out the Awilix in that Ganesha grab, and not only that, but the slows could definitely be where Eboys managed to find a lot of their crowd control.
I love this draft coming out from Eboys. I think that Nike is a great initiator. You jump in, you pop your ultimate, and you obviously have a pride win because that's the way you play the game, and that's a really nasty initiation. It was that way before. It was that way now. We'll see if Eboys have enough tools to take on big money and get the big money off to the casters.
Something is going to have to change, though, on the side of big money if they want to win this one. Finch and Tolly still here on the call. Jelly still on the Pele that looks so good for him. In fact, the comp's not looking too different on big money's side. It's really Ebog that switched things up. Except for Zen, who had a great game on the Apollo.
Definitely, Zen having that fantastic game. I think Axiom also had a good game on the Soul, but now he's on the Xbalanque instead. Ebog doing an interesting proxy between the Tier 1 and Tier 2 with the use also of this Frenzy to be able to burn it down a little faster.
Yeah, Beaudilla just doing what he can to be a bit of a nuisance there and slow them down during it, though he can't really prevent them from doing this proxy strat. So that buys a little bit of time for Ebog. We can see them putting it to good use, going for the enemy blue buff, but in response, Big Money is going for the Order side blue buff. But Ebog finished a little bit sooner. They might be able to come down and contest.
Definitely can, and that's what they'll do. Sitting still at level 1 is both sides of it. Looks like blue buff has been traded 1-for-1, but getting back to the lane at the same time. No love lost, no love found.
Jelly just barely able to stay alive over in the long lane, where it looks like it has returned to its duo roots. It's just that it's junglers who are over here this time, Jelly and Relating. I like this better from Jelly, though, to at least be with Relating. Last time, Relating was on his own and did much better with his ganks.
That's true. It's, I guess, Relating a little bit too predictable, but he's switching his targets now. Who needs to hit Axiom when Jelly's around this corner?
That's right. As strong as Pele is in the early game, Awilix's Feather Step is just so good. There was a while where her level 1 gank, just with Feather Step, was just undeal-withable. So, I mean, no surprise that she's getting the better of the trade.
I think at level 1, it's an 8-second cooldown anyway, so it's very easy to get off multiple instances. Original taking a whole bunch of damage there, but it looks like these two Guardians are winning this battle of the trade.
So far, they are, and they're able to get a good bit of damage off onto Original now playing the Nike, as opposed to last game where he was on the Ares. I think Original had a great kind of early to mid game, and then late kind of had some struggles, probably because didn't go that blink. This time he's going to have a different look.
Yeah, he definitely needs to consider how to engage properly. He doesn't have teleport. He wants to go for this Shell Relic for the laning phase.
That's a good abduct, though, coming out from Beaudilla that forces Nano into the beat early. Sprint popped as well, but Vultiee cuts that short just by standing in the way.
I love when I see little things like that of being able to either intercept an ability or intercept a whole god in front of you to prevent any additional chase down potential. Nano felt a little frisky there. At level 4, going for the kill or just for poke, put himself a little too far out of position, getting saved by his support.
He's on the Merlin. We were just saying, Tolly, you and I, that we still think Merlin is plenty good despite some of the changes that he got and maybe doing a little bit less damage. And Nano agrees, though it cost him his beads early, some of his aggressive positioning. So he'll have to be mindful of that going forward, even with the flicker.
That's true, as Merlin did receive a few nerfs between this mid-season patch. The Blizzard deploy time was delayed by about 0.2 seconds. A little bit of changes to the Arcane stance, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
But other than that, I think like he's still worthy of a pick before the secondary ban phase. Last game he was banned in the secondary ban phase, and this time he was completely first picked. And I think this comes down to there's just so many gods, Finch, that do so many cool things that it's about what you want to bring as your team's identity, not necessarily of falling into the meta, falling into what everyone has under a tier list.
And it has kind of opened up a little bit. Those 6 bans do that to where you can play a little bit more. I think there's a few more options of what you can play. Those options include Xbalanque, who I'm happy to see getting played a bit. I know that he does not have the stun on the ultimate anymore, and that does change a lot of what he can do, and he could be a bit slower to ramp up now. And things feel so early focused, but I think there's still a slot for Xbalanque, especially with long lane being so isolated.
Hey, is attack speed good?
Yeah,
that's what you definitely want for Xbalanque, to be able to get the damage rolling there eventually through getting the player damage and then getting that physical power after the fact. So 30 physical power
for free.
For free?
Oh yeah.
I'll take that.
Yeah, sign me up. I'll take 2.
Would I rather have 30 physical power permanently, or hold that thought?
As in goes Jelly, and he wants Nano, who doesn't seem to have the flicker available, but gets saved. Beaudilla comes in. That makes it 1-for-1. Vultiee goes down as well, a 2-for-1. Fireworks display in the middle lane.
A great way to demonstrate Jelly's potential on the blink. Pele now Original getting a little frisky, gonna force out Jabami's ultimate just for counter poke. Not necessarily even for clearing the wave or actually a kill, but at the end of the day, a 2-for-1 favoring out Big Money.
Does indeed favor out Big Money, but this is what Khepri can do that makes him feel so strong, able to come in and find a nice abduct so that they only lose Jelly on the back end of that fight. And I'm sure he's happy with the trade. Even though he didn't get a kill, I'm sure he would have liked to have found first blood himself. 0-1-2 for getting a chance to slow down Nano. Doesn't feel too bad.
All right, so back to our topic of discussion between these two hunters. Would you rather, Finch, this is a new game I just made up.
Okay.
Would you rather have 30 physical power permanently throughout the course of a game, or 100% attack speed for 6 basic attacks every now and then?
Those are both pretty good, I'm not gonna lie, but I think I would take 30 free power.
Because it's permanent.
Because you get it on everything you do all the time. Yeah,
We
nice.
take those. Easy dub. You win, by the way.
Yeah,
That's
relating.
the right answer.
I'm glad I was able to find my way there as Axiom is forced into the purification feeds. He's got to be used to it at this point, though, having relating in his lane all the time.
Yeah, that's a little bit annoying to see this Awilix, which doesn't get much limelight, honestly. And I think that's criminalistic almost to see that Awilix doesn't get that much play time with how many jumps are in the game, with how many knockups are in the game to set up your gravity surge. It makes it so easy. By the way, Silver Branch on Awilix, level 20.
Oh, is that the play? Feels good.
It's pretty good if you go attack speed.
Awilix can be pretty scary with their auto attacks, I think, too. So you're not wrong, as Jelly is now the jungler that wants to spend time in duo. Good call by not using the knockup, but doesn't land it once she waits for the beat's time to go out. That means that Zen should be okay, and now Relating can counter gank.
Uh-oh, here it comes. Feather step onto Axioms. There's no dash, and Apollo landing back in, but it doesn't matter if he hits it because he's got a whole bunch of backup.
My man covered Arkansas when everyone else was in Texas. That was not great. A couple of things that weren't great there in that gank, but in the end, it does end up going in favor of Ebog after a, not a great gank.
Zen just wanted to say hi to PBM on the west side of the Mississippi River.
Right. Dude, is there anyone better than PBM west of the Mississippi?
Not west of the Mississippi.
Right. East, though, tons of talent.
Yes.
Yeah.
So much talent on the east side. The west side, no one even comes close to PBM.
That's right. But that was interesting. Jelly blinks in, immediate beats from Zen, as you have to do it off the sound cue from Blink, right? But he waits for the knockup. But when he does he doesn't get close enough to actually knock Zen up, and unfortunately can't actually get the kill, and then Relating is just kind of at a buffet on the back end.
That's right. Axiom also using that Rising Jaguar to get closer, puts himself out of position. As a level 7 Xbalanque during that 2v1, didn't really have the physical power, his passive stack's not fully built up, so he didn't have the damage. Even though the Darkest of Nights was used for the extra range, he couldn't really commit that tower dive.
Axiom is able to make it back out of there, now Relating in trouble, doesn't have Suku, and Jelly cleans up the kill to make it 3 for 3 overall in terms of kills, and things are virtually even in the gold department.
Yeah, both of these junglers feeling very rambunctious about how they want to pursue some of these attempts, and failing at times, succeeding at others. Gold Fury very early, I'd say, this game.
But with a nice kill onto Relating, they can feel pretty good about starting this up. It's just Vultiee, basically, who's nearby to try and contest. Dharmic Pillars is not enough. Big Money secure the objective, though Beaudilla does get locked down. That might buy some time for Nano to make his way in
he got it.
and find the kill. Beaudilla, not recognizing the danger, doesn't even use Scarab's Blessing.
That was a nice rotation from Nano, but at the end of the day, Big Money got what they wanted, so they're still sitting pretty with the disengaged. It's up to Ebog now to take advantage of the lack of mana maybe from Privative and siege this tower in multiple waves, because Privative can still defend this one wave with one ability, but needs to hold out for a second wave.
Relating, though, in a lot of trouble, hard to win this battle up against Jelly when Jelly has the volcanic eruption, or volcanic lightning rather, and instead will fall back.
Jabami could have maybe made a rotation there with the World Serpent, but instead just opting to farm, might even find a kill onto Original Spartan. This is Aggressive plays from both sides, whether it's the jungle, whether it's the solo laner, and forcing out Relating to back. Actually, he doesn't even back. He's like still farming the whole time. I think he got the backside right camps into his speed buff, utilizing that Assassin's Blessing very well, transitioning over now to the left side of the map.
Original has Shell as his first relic.
Yep.
And it looks like it's fully upgraded too. And I guess to try and mitigate for not having teleport, he's gone into the Talaria boots.
Yes.
Despite them having less power.
Yeah, so you can do this if you're feeling confident that you're not going to get bullied out, and in the one-off case you do get ganked, you can rely on the Talaria to come back. You're setting yourself up for a really good spot in the mid to late game by not having teleport for team fighting relic purposes, right? So last game he went for no blink on the Ares, thinking of team fighting potential with the horrific emblem. So this is kind of like the player that he is, that he would rather sacrifice his own farm potentially, because he might miss out on a couple minions here and there without teleport for the greater good of a team fighting relic later on.
And I do like when solo laners are willing to look at other relics, as Jabami's forced into the ultimate very quickly in this fight. But that means Nano gets knocked up a bunch. It actually works in Jabami's favor, and Big Money look good to start the fight. Vultiee ends up falling to Privative as well. Suddenly a 2-for-1, but Jabami needs to stay alive. Zen is able to take him out with the Across the Sky ultimate, and now Ebog want to keep on pushing because Privative's been isolated.
Oh no, Finch, a 2-for-2, and this whole entire time, Axiom obviously can't keep up with the rotation of the Apollo, so he's going to be chilling in that left side of the map, building up those Devil Glove stack, allowing Ebog to even go for the Pyro.
And even without Pyro, I think Ebog might be favored because they got mid and solo instead of mid and support. They're cutting out on some pretty important farm, and now they want Jelly. A good abduct keeps him alive. That actually saves his life. Nice play from Beaudilla, though it may cost him his own. Twitch Relating can't quite find the last of the damage.
Oh, but now Axiom making this rotation is going to dissuade the tier 1 tower dive despite Nano making this rotation. InMyZen still pulling the power the whole entire time until finally somebody's like, please get this person off of me.
Well, no longer a question now about who came out on top in that little skirmish when Ebog also grabbing the Pyromancer. Not the biggest objective in the world, obviously, but a little bit more than what Big Money got. And this game still remains very, very even between these two squads, despite 12 minutes of action.
That's right. These teams definitely feel evenly matched because they're just trading blows. They're like two heavy hitter boxers going the distance of all 12 rounds. That last game could have easily ended like in round number 9 at 25 minutes if they wanted to, but it went 36 minutes to round 12 to judge decision, basically, with that one small pick onto, I believe it was Privative on the Muzen cob.
Yep, that's what sealed it for him. No one appears to be tapping out here in this match. Both of our hunters have grabbed the fail knot, it looks like here, Tolly, or at least they're working towards it right now. Almost like an arms race of crit between these two. Both these solo laners should be able to pretty reliably build anti-crit. I wonder if they'll have time to recognize before they pick up these next relics.
That's right. Jabami still in lane, has access to pick the Thorns if he wants to. Beaudilla looking for an engage as Nano flickers away. Original probably should go Thorns absolutely with that open relic slot. He already has the shell. He's obviously not going teleport as a second relic slot. That ship has sailed.
That's right. I mean, and Shell already kind of signals some anti-auto attacker anyway, because once it's upgraded, you do get those block stacks anyway. So add on top of that you can reflect the damage. He can really take both Relating and Zen out of this a lot, because Awilix can rely a lot on her basic attacks too.
He can even consider not going Thorns because of those two reasons that you mentioned. He's like, I have so much anti-hunter already between my shell and my shield that why not go for something else?
Good
Maybe
point.
Go for like some magical defense.
Relating blinks onto Axiom to try and bait out the jump from him, but Jelly was waiting in the wings. That's a nice mess, but it's just not enough. Relating had some good damage, but ends up falling. Next up is Vultiee to see if he can keep the fight going, but even with Dharmic Pillars, he has to fall back. Another nice pick for Big Money.
A good sprint from Beaudilla to disengage on top of this. This is how Big Money is, making the plays, is by isolating so many targets and just outnumbering Ebog at every given moment.
It really does feel like Big Money's rolling up to the ATM and making withdrawals in the long lane. They have been looking for pick after pick over there on both sides, really. A lot more action than we normally see from these hunters who kind of just get to farm for free in long lane. And Jabami barely makes it.
very close. Jabami thinking his lucky stars. That must have been less than 100 health total coming from Nano. And Nano is going to be really starting to power spike soon. That he just finished his Divine Ruin, trying to limit some of the healing potential from the Pele passive and maybe some of the self-sustain from others.
Well, Oni Fury being considered. Big Money got the first gold Fury this game, and they got the only two, by the way. No one here to defend that one. Zen maybe sleeping on the job a bit as that one grabbed up by Big Money. And the rest of Ebog just going to fall back to parity.
Might have to play defense under this tier 1 tower. Looks like Ebog wants to get something.
They follow the pull. That brings Beaudilla back in. A ton of damage there from the Merlin. It's just not enough. The root keeps Vultiee locked down, but they've done enough just with Privative and Beaudilla to keep the tower alive and make sure that that grab of the Fury remains just an advantage for the team.
A little bit of a test to see if they can actually get a kill with their full combo. Not quite there yet, as Relating finishing off his Hydra's Lament. A great power spike play. Needs some more penetration, though, to be super effective. And without having Executioner from Zen to synergize with Relating, maybe Awilix just straight up goes Executioner instead.
Could be the call. Axiom has already finished off his Fail Not at this point. Zen hasn't found the timing, it looks like, to back and complete it. At 2-0-2, I assume he has the gold. Meanwhile, Big Money are in position around their opposition's red buff for the invade. Two-man root from Beaudilla is not a bad way to get things started. That forces Relating to use the beads early, and now Jabami can start looking for the damage. Privative gets the kill, and Relating removed already from the fight.
He was crippled from the Stinger. He just couldn't jump away from the Suku at all. And now Original trying to fight 4-on-5. He's going to get isolated, goes into the Sentinel of Zeus, jumps away. No real objective to grab on the left side for Big Money.
But it does look like they got the red buff. It's around Privative's waist at the very least, so I assume they were able to find it. Meanwhile, Ebog looking for what they can to try and find a little bit more on the back end. But I think Big Money have found a bit of a timing window here where they're the stronger squad. They even get the tier 1 tower in mid too. This is a great recognition of a bit of a power spike.
It really is, Finch, because when you're going on to this Awilix that doesn't have Mad Guy's cloak, you're not worried about her blinking onto you. She's in combat, and that's the one idea. Now Axiom with a little bit of a flank. Need some more crits. Ooh, the dots!
Just needed a little bit more there from Axiom. Jabami gets the kill on the Spartan. Zen actually does live. Pyromancer goes down as well, and now Nano is the one in a bit of trouble. He's already used his relics, but that's a good knockup from Relating. The response is Scarab's blessing, but Relating jumps in. All caution to the wind, finds one more kill, and is even looking for more.
He wants it. He needs it, Finch, because nobody's able to defend the left side tier 1 tower, but instead just kind of gonna bide their time and wait it out a little bit. A great pick after the Pyromancer, but I still got to give credit to Big Money to be able to force out a lot of these cooldowns, force another objective down, as they're still in control of this game.
Relating once he's back heartbeats, he'll realize soon that he must leave and jumps over the wall. Doug, can we see the graphs? I want to see how quickly this gold started for them. It wasn't too long ago where they were at parity, and it just kind of got chipped and chipped away at until they moved to about 4,000 gold out in front. I don't know if Ebog recognized that suddenly they were fighting into a lead.
That's right. I think that biggest lead is off of that second Fury that they accumulated off of themselves. Tonomakus are basically even. Only 125 gold separates those two teams, but it's all going to come down to who is going to force the fight first. Because now that Magga's Cloak is done for Relating, he'll be able to intercept some of those exchanges and absorb a cooldown or two. And I'm looking at the anti-healing now. Divine Ruin from Nano. You got the Pestilence coming out from Vultiee. No real Cursed Ankh to speak of to maybe get a little bit of extra damage from those healing targets, but still, at least those two are good enough. And the Brawlers from Relating.
That's not the only relic that we were keeping an eye on that hasn't shown up. No Thorns either from either side. That means these crit builds should be greenlit for Zen and for Axiom. Not only that, but these are both two hunters that do really well with crit builds. Xbalanque, it feels like that's his home with all that extra power that he gets as Jelly meets up with a Rignal over on the right-hand side. Fail Nots completed into the Executioners for both hunters.
And the difference between like going crit with a lot of attack speed that Zen's going to have with Audacity versus a lot of power versus what Axiom is going to have is how many opportunities do you have to shoot at that target anyway? Right. Like if you only have about a second anyway, the difference between 2.5 versus let's say 2.1 doesn't really matter anyway. You're still getting off 2 basics.
Exactly. The difference in that instance would be who has more power on each hit, which would likely be Axiom. So those windows, as you said, are going to be critical. Now, Original does still have the shield, despite not having thorns. He can cut out a lot of that from Axiom in terms of his auto attacks hitting home. So it's probably Zen who will have a slightly better chance this game to get off some good damage.
But then the other defensive measures is Beaudilla, right? Like not only the Scarab's Blessing, but the Rising Dawn, if that hits.
Jelly is forced into using the ultimate defensively, but that means Gold Fury is on the menu for big money on the other side. Beads forced out from Nano as well as Abduct from Beaudilla hits home. And they'll add a Gold Fury to their coffers as well.
That's their 3rd one, just adding more to the pile. Original taking a whole bunch of damage, but
turned around.
Just a distraction. It's like, hey, I got your tower.
I'm okay
buddy.
with that trade, says Original. Some bravery being shown as he was considering going back in. But somehow Big Money found a way to just kind of snatch control away from Ebog. And like you said, it's been largely around these Furies and slowly building a lead. That pick they got onto relating was really nice too, and they played around that small 5v4 advantage.
Even though Big Money have the lead, I'm not confident that this is enough for them to just win out, honestly, because their lack of magical damage in the late game. Beaudilla on the Khepri, Jabami on the Jormungandr. You have 2 physical hunters and a physical assassin. You got to be worried to face off against Nano. That's a ticking time bomb. Once that Merlin hits level 20, once he gets 5-6 items deep, you're going to be running into a lot of issues.
That's right, because he went with this Divine Ruin and no pen boots. That's about all he has for pen options to get much help here right now. He's gonna, once his items are online, it'll be a huge spike for him as Original is melting like butter. They catch him out, and Big Money can now start up the FG. Suddenly, Ebog have to rotate quickly just to get the information. They do have Vultiee and Relating here, but I don't see how they can make this work to try and defend. Fire Giant's already low, and Big Money have it.
They do. Now they might be looking for a pick onto Vultiee. He did dash away. World Serpent coming through, looking for a little bit of a chase down potential. I think Vultiee should still be okay at the end of the day. Big Money going to call that one off.
Original getting picked. That's a lot like what he looked like at the end of Game 1, where he would be on his own a little bit too far forward and fall. Zen can threaten this tower on the tier 2 and left. I think he can actually grab it. No way for Jelly to move in. So that's a nice answer back, but look at the rest of Big Money. They're just pushing down right.
They should be able to get it too if they can just get, but the good amount of absorption. The shell as well. Relating actually body blocked his own ally for a little bit.
And now they should be able to put in some more damage on the right side. Phoenix, in comes Original. He can just straight up block these auto attacks to buy his team some time to move in. And the Sentinel of Zeus for the AoE slows. That's good work from Original to buy time for the rest of Ebog to make their way in.
Sam even rotating as well. It is a 4-on-4 because Jelly is not in position. And with that in mind, Sen going to give a movement speed buff to Spartan to go deeper.
But he no longer has that Sentinel of Zeus. He might be being a little bit too brave jumping this far forward. Beaudilla can't find the Abduct, but Original has again become the target. Axiom hits with 1 auto and forces him back. This should be a tier 2 for Big Money.
And this all started off with a beautiful trap that Big Money laid for Original Spartan.
Yeah, he walked right into it.
Coming behind the Fire Giant, one person behind the blue buff, another at the top of the Fire Giant, making that pincer maneuver. Nowhere for Original to go for the duration of the CC.
Ironically, I think it kind of worked out for them a little bit, though, on the side of Ebog, because Original spawned just in time to walk up to the right Phoenix and kind of keep that one alive. So it's funny. It cost them the FG, but maybe saved them a Phoenix or something like that. I don't know how the math works out.
Possibly. They still have they have a large hill to climb. Finch.
Yes.
Only 2 more towers remaining until Big Money can really start going to town on all of these Phoenixes if they want to. Curious about what direction they're going to go first, because Ebog went towards the dual lane Phoenix, then they went towards the solo lane Phoenix, then finally trying their middle until it took that one inevitable pick-off onto Privative to end the game.
Original forces down the tier 1 in mid. Beaudilla gives up the chase, and he should be okay. Now, in Game 1, Big Money were in a somewhat similar position in terms of like who had the lead, who was pushing, and they defended 3 times in the late game. They didn't end up getting the win, but they did stretch the game out. Ebog have got to hold on and see if they can buy some time for this Ob Shard to finish for Nano. That's going to be such a big spike for him.
Yeah, and I don't think the Tier 1 tower is the place that they want to try to do their first defense. And with Nano taking that much damage, they have to concede the Tier 2 as well.
Jabami is in the ultimate, forces the Aegis out from Nano. That's huge. You can turn around and start looking to gobble up Vultiee until they might not even have a chance to set up those defenses we talk about. Orignal forced into the ultimate, the Sentinel of Zeus. That's Pride when proccing and the actual ult. Tier 2 comes tumbling down to earth, and Big Money in the 5v4 can threaten Phoenix.
I don't see how they defend this one, Finch. Ebog went a little bit too far forward. They lose another member now. This left side Phoenix less than half health.
This is what we mean by bend but not break. Ebog, on the other hand, went right to break. They spend too much resources defending a Tier 1 or being nearby it, and now Big Money just take the game. That's a deicide, and Big Money sign us up for a Game 3.
They were so far out of position on the left side of the map, and they paid the ultimate price, but it's not the end of the world for Ebog. We're going to go into a game number 3.
They're going to get one more shot at this, both of these teams, and it's hard to imagine a more evenly matched set here, Tolly. These two have been neck and neck, back and forth. One team finds a small window, and they've capitalized every time.
That one little trap right on top of Orignal, that one little trap right onto Privative in game number 1. Who's going to be the next one to lay the trap in game 3?
That's a good point. Stop looking for the cheese there, guys. There's never anything good. We'll be back here after the break.
Skillshot, the official production partner of the SMITE Console League.
What up, Demons? It's your boy, Tom Battinger, and after that one, we're tied up 1-1 between Big Money and their opponent, Eboys Gone Wild. It's not my favorite name, but they put out some good gameplay, and that's what we're here to talk about with Taco.
Well, maybe not so much in Game 2 from the E-Boys, but Game 1, on the other hand, has things all tied up for now, as Game 3 should be a rather interesting, down-to-the-wire type of matchup, and here, I think it was just that lack of hard crowd control that really got the better end of E-Boys. A little bit overconfident as well in some of their plays and decision-making. It just felt like they were still playing as though they were still in Game 1.
Certainly felt like that, Taco. I think Big Money certainly had a great job, a great composition of just chaseability. Let's take a look at how this team won the game, and this is really it. It's just walk them down, right? You've got the Jormungandr that's never going to stop. The Pele's never going to stop, and that's pretty much the gist of this team composition is never stop.
Really glad you brought up the Pele. I think that JellyNOO had a fantastic performance with that. Pele was able to create so much space for the rest of Big Money Esports to kind of follow up in. Privative as well, made to be one of the early targets at the start, but unfortunately for E-Boys, they just could not maintain that same level of pressure, and the momentum was just very one-sided there for Big Money. But whether or not they can repeat it in Game 3 is a completely different story.
Exactly. So let's get the picks and bans for game number 3 here as we rush towards the end of the set. And that's what I'm looking for, is for E-Boys to kind of get what they had in game number 1 and for Big Money to get what they had in game number 2, because these were kind of lopsided games. I want to see both these teams come out and give us a nice little tiebreaker right here. And so the picks and bans, well, the bans are going to be the same so far. No Isis and no Zhongqi. I expect to kind of say goodbye to the same characters as well. The Chronos has been banned time and time again.
This is a switch-up, though, for E-Boys, because it's been Big Money, actually, the ones who have been consistent with that Chronos ban. but
That's big.
hoping that by taking away the Khepri and the Chronos here, I think that Eboys are just trying to target ban specific gods, because keep in mind, this is just what Big Money had success with, and if they can force Big Money to look towards a different direction by banning the Chronos themselves, then that could leave open the likes of Odin. Already, I think, a pretty heavy power pick there for the Eboys.
Odin's been banned out this entire time, and so without him on the ban list, Odin's going to come through first pick. We'll see if it's worth it, because first pick for Odin is still kind of eyebrow-raising. With that in mind, though, what's not is Arlong Shen. This is probably, in my opinion, the best character in the game, and joined up with the Jormungandr.
Best character in the game is a little debatable. He's up there.
Yes.
I will not disagree
Yes.
with you on that one. He has definitely risen in the ranks.
So we've got Isis that's banned out. Who else would you put in that conversation?
Scotty.
Scotty's definitely up there.
I think Scotty's up there. Ares is up there pretty significantly right now. Thor's in the same boat, and Isis as well. But of course, those two gods are going to be banned away. Same thing for Chronos. They're all top tier gods, but not so much about the what ifs, and now more so focusing in on the actuality of things, and that's Eboys Gone Wild, going very warrior dependent. This triple warrior front line is kind of a little bit make it or break it, because sure, you can get a little bit of early game pressure, a lot of early game dominance, honestly, if you're able to actually have successful buff invades. But the real drawback of this one is if you don't find that early game pressure, you're just gonna, I don't know. It's risky.
I need like a Kali here. I need late game devastation. You know, I need like a Kali, and I don't know what comes to mind. We always think of the damage dealers, but maybe like a Hell or something to assist that Kali, because I'm with you.
It just feels like a trap right now, because it's just triple physical, triple warrior, everything's melee range dependent. That's an ideal situation for a Discordia to be in as well, because she's going to have her Strife magic and Strife and Unruly magic, excuse me. It's been a little bit since that Discordia play, a little bit of a tongue twister there, but what I'm really getting at here, though, is the fact that Discordia, if she's able to find multiple targets in that Strife for the Unruly magic setup, I mean, you also have that little madness effect kind of going on, where it's not going to be easy for those warriors to really work their way into Big Money's backline.
Cupid going to be the hunter of choice. Interesting. And the Oleron. So the Oleron is less surprising. This is a mage ADC, and you've got 4 physical at this point. The Cupid is surprising twofold. One, it's physical, and that's, you know, now your composition is all leading on physical. And 2, he's Cupid. We rarely see the choice, usually when it comes down to cripple effects.
It's the Cupid pick into the Ho Yi that strikes me as kind of odd, because normally that Fields of Love could be a huge boxing opportunity, but then you just Sunbreaker on top of it, and Cupid can't fight you in that. I'm not a fan of this Eboys Gone Wild draft. I'll say that much. They're definitely a talented roster, though, so I believe their execution can pull it off, but Big Money's looking pretty good.
We'll see how good they're looking. Game 3, off to you guys on the field.
It's been an evenly matched set so far, but someone has to win. It's Eboys Gone Wild versus Big Money Esports here to help close out PS4 NA. We won't even be done after that, though. Xbox NA still has some excitement of their own. But now we get a chance here to see someone we don't see that much of, and I don't mean Oleron. I mean Cupid here.
Cupid,
yes,
that's
exactly.
right. I knew that's the direction you were going to go with, because who would obviously want to talk about this newer African god? Instead, let's talk about the little baby with the little hearts. But honestly, I like the different stances between these two compositions of JellyNOO switching it up from the Pele to the Arlong Shen, has more CC, less mobility than the Pele, but still great team fighting aspects. Spartan and Relating, these two double warriors need to be super hyper aggressive in the mid game.
Yes, they're going to need to create a good deal of space. I like the idea, though, between this draft. They've created this space where Big Money just cannot fight them. I'll talk about it right now because Zen makes out of there easily with a dash. They have the Odin Cage and also this time dilation field from Nano on the Oleron. That's so much of the area that you just can't be in, or you'll certainly die. Whichever one you're stuck in, Zen's going to cover with the Fields of Love. I mean, it's so much space control.
And you're going to have to be building a Phantom to get out of Relating's ultimate. Looking at the
already there
composition from Big Money, like, only Jabami can really get out of it. I guess also Privative with the use of that third ability.
Jabami might be in a bit of trouble. He's a ways away from the tower. Vultiee instead turn around towards Beaudilla and the rest of the wave. These two Guardians are holding their own here up against these Warriors in the solo side so far. But what's with this gathering of people that's happening in the jungle? It's fighting everywhere. Incredibly low is Beaudilla, doing his best to try and get away from the autos from Original, but it's not enough. That's first blood for Eboys Gone Wild.
They're able to finally find it after a whole minute of running around in circles. It was like a game of musical chairs almost. It felt like how they're running around looking for the last possible seat, and instead Relating gets out by the skin of his teeth. Nano going to make sure that he gets his own speed buff on top of this.
But I like that Big Money's being aggressive into this Ola run. He doesn't have that much safety when he's not level 5, so you really can't punish, especially with an aggressive 2 first picks like this Discordia and the Erlong Shen. They just couldn't quite grab it though. Vultiee doing good work there to help them out.
Vultiee though doing a decent amount of damage to Privative. Nano not super close to be able to get in position to find that kill. But Olerod is an interesting god in terms of being vastly different than most other mage ADCs.
Yeah.
Like he crits, number 1.
Not bad.
He's going to be able, the time dilation, we haven't seen it yet this game, but being able to slow down your opponents to set up so many kills, like if you're knocked up, that's the biggest, probably the best form of CC, and you really feel the knockup in that sanctified field.
It drags on 40% slower. That's for basically everything that's happening to you inside the field. 40% slower to cast, to move, and while you're affected by the CC. On the other side, obviously the Ola run is enhanced while he's within it, so he's able to hit you even harder. It can feel so difficult to fight inside it, though remember, the CC immunity is all just as good as normal while you're in it. So if you're like an On-Her or someone with an ultimate where you're CC immune, all of that stuff can help you to reposition, as well as beads, of course, too. So those cooldowns, extra important that you save them for that sanctified field.
And it's not only that, in terms of slowing things down or speeding things up, but his first ability, that Focus Light, goes further in range.
Yeah, you're right. It doubles, doesn't it?
It's insane. It's almost like the Thoth wall mechanic.
Yes. What essentially happens is that it charges up and the duration extends while you're casting, and so that extension of the duration is doubled. It happens even faster while he's inside of it. So yeah, you can fire it over an even extended range through the sanctified field. So Olerin has a lot going on. He also builds up charges on the second ability when it's fired, and then can refire it again in a small area for a bunch of shots like you just see him use on the wave. There's a lot of tools in Olerin's kit at his disposal, and at times it can feel hard to use them all correctly. So I trust Nano to be at a really comfortable level.
And for all those reasons you just mentioned, Finched, I'm not out. I'm still buying the stocks of all the Oleron potential out there. He's so easy to like burn objectives with as well. Like I don't know how fast he's in comparison to like let's say a Soul with full heat, but once you do have those 20 stacks, very difficult to really stop him in his tracks.
Original, using the Lord of the Afterlife, is able to force Jabami into the ultimate of his own. Looks like he's already given up on using these ultimate charges for any further damage. Instead, he'll look to fall back, but Relating doesn't want to fall back. That cage is pretty. It looks nice. Now he'll jump in for a little bit more damage off the leap, but at this point, Jabami and Jelly are out. Horus, though, is absolutely not done, or he can't be knocked back, so instead, they'll get some extra damage. Nano cleans it up. Calculated.
Even the death animations are slowed down as well.
That's right.
Seeing the whole like little wiggle coming through from Jabami as he finally goes down. A great rotation coming through from Vultiee for the secondary cleanup. Relating heavily off the mark there with the cage. He definitely liked it, and he tried to put a ring on it, but I don't think that Jabami wanted that whatsoever. It did kind of zone out Jelly a little bit from making that rotation, though.
And that's what I was thinking. You can obviously also use the cage to cut off parts of the fight, and maybe they were trying to isolate and force Jabami to come back underneath towards the tower instead of being able to escape towards blue buff. That's always an option, but much better to keep him in the cage. It does both things if they're in the cage.
Especially when there's no phantoms in the game yet.
Right, yeah. Well, Beaudilla, but he's not there for it to help out yet, but yes.
That would be a big play.
So instead, Ebog will enjoy their start to the game. 2 kills already, 1 for Nano, who was able to ride along with Vultiee during his ultimate to come join the fray and drop down the Sanctified Field to really leave Jabami with no options. And early on in the game, even though it costs quite a few ultimates, you're okay using that many just to get some kills. It's not as if there's big fights you'll be punished on the back end of them.
That's right. 6 minutes in, like, you're not really worried about sneaking of Gold Furies quite yet, especially when there's a huge Fields of Love that you could still use on the left to contest and potentially steal away at that objective.
This time, Relating drops down the cage. Jelly's able to make his way out of there. Beaudilla was here this time, so if the Phantom had been required, it would have been on hand, but again, no one stuck inside, and everyone makes it out.
I think like if he throws a bunch of spaghetti at the wall, some of them will stick. You think that's what he's trying to do with the Odin ults?
To be fair, I've always said you should be high volume with your Odin cages, so I can't be too mad, though you'd like for there to be people inside.
Less healing.
Yes.
It's pretty good.
It's all pretty good. You're stuck there, you know, unless you have, like, you know, some movement to get you out. I think Privative and Jabami can make their way out of them, even Axiom as well. So, I mean, maybe it's not that big a deal. Most of them can just kind of leave.
Like the famous Michael Scott once said,
Right.
you miss 100% of the shots you don't take.
Wayne Gretzky, yeah.
Michael Scott.
Right, Michael Scott, Wayne Gretzky, yeah.
And now me.
We got there eventually. Anatolia, we got there eventually. But this set has been close so far, and even now, despite 2 early kills from Ebog, it's still a relatively close match. Original commits the Lord of the Afterlife there, despite Jabami basically being at the tower line already. That was ambitious. And in response to Big Money, just go right to the Gold Fury. Why not? They drop the Suns from Axiom, and no one's nearby. This Gold Fury should be all Big Money.
They have no idea, Finch. Zen was not even trying to poke his head around the corner. He was farming the wave instead. That Fields of Love would have been necessary and crucial to try to steal away at that objective. And this is the difference between a 6-minute gank versus an 8-minute gank. A little bit more powerful is Big Money, and they read that like a book. Original Spartan used that ultimate in hopes that Jabami would have used his World Serpent defensively to allow the follow-up from Nano and Vultiee to clean up the same way they did earlier.
Fortunately for Ebog, that was not the case. Not only that, but they end up losing the Gold Fury on the back end of that one too, as they clearly were not expecting that call out from Big Money. But I'm surprised they weren't ready. Big Money had such a focus on objectives last game. Relating is able to find one in the cage. This time, though, it's Jelly and the Sanctified Field on top of it. Finally, they're able to get him out. They use Phantom and Beams, and they keep everyone alive.
So far, so good for Big Money. They get the objective. They keep everyone alive. They are down in the kill department, but that doesn't really matter too much if they're able to control the objectives.
Right.
The damage not quite there yet from Nano. Also, he was a little bit too far backwards once that engage happened. It was only Relating and Vultiee, and those aren't like your big heavy hitters to get people low enough for the kill.
It's so funny. I think the initial impression for Oloron when he came out, as Original's actually quite low here in this 1v1, he is able to get away from the breath, able to find the stun with the tether, but maybe he's trying to bait Jabami in. He has a lot of help coming with Relating and with Vultiee nearby. That might be the idea.
He's thinking about it potentially as Vultiee is wrapping around the corner. He's relying on the Gladiator Shield procs, the Warrior's Blessing procs to trade out. We have Jabami, seeing how there's no more health chalice stacks as Vultiee in a 1v2, but baiting because he has 2 more allies around the corner.
It might have been a little bit too obvious. If even I'm seeing the bait, then you know Jabami is, at this point, with his experience level. Beaudilla might be in a bit of trouble. This time Relating finds himself a nice cage, and Beaudilla does not have Phantom with which to escape. Though they haven't put much damage into him, finally they lock him down with the Horus knockup. But he makes it into the rollout, into the wall, but a great read. The Horus ultimate is still too slow, but the whole team here, they should be able to catch Beaudilla eventually.
Are
there
they?
it is.
Okay, finally they're going to get the kill, but it took Relating to take 2 tower shots as just barely off the mark was Privative, not having the range to get the trade out kill. When a Geb gets us rollout out in the middle of 4 people after being trapped in a cage, something went wrong in terms of the focus fire, because this isn't the most tankiest god in the game. Like level 8 Geb with Sovereignty, I'm not sure if he had it complete during that or not, but the passive for anti-crit doesn't matter here because no one has crit. He's very squishy at this point in the game.
That's interesting. I wonder. I haven't actually seen the Oloron into Geb matchup. Does it help him against Oloron's crits?
It does. It does
Okay.
definitely help against Oloron's crits. I think also that Relating missed the jump damage onto
Yes.
Beaudilla.
They
that
missed
was a big
a
factor.
lot on him, and I think Beaudilla was looking for the juke on the Horus ult to try and get him to commit it in the wrong direction because he cuts back in like towards his own mid tier 1
okay.
tower, but he actually ends up going towards. I don't know if maybe the hard read was just there from Vultiee, or if he didn't even, or you have to commit so early that he never even saw the juke or whatever. However the timing worked, but it ended up being the perfect read, and Vultiee got the team there.
With that, tower's still very healthy. I'm looking at the builds now, different styles between these supports. Vultiee thinking about trying to go for both magical and physical defense aura items, whereas Beaudilla wants to get that health and physical defense online sooner rather than later. Kind of like this timing window where he's respecting the physical damage now versus thinking about the magical damage later. Because Nano's not a serious threat 12, 13 minutes into the game yet.
No, not yet. He has the Pythagorean's piece and cooldown. That all feels a bit more utility to me for now, and he should be able to rely on some damage later as Axiom drops the Suns. This is exactly what we were talking about. You can't afford to stick around in that heat. He burns down. They find the second kill into Relating as well. A nice fight from Big Money. They're not even done. They're forcing Vultiee to back.
That was insane. Those Suns were doing way too much. Even through Zen trying to get away from it. I don't think he had the Aegis. He didn't back, I believe, once he hit level 12.
I don't think so either, as Axiom gets one more kill. All of a sudden, 2-0-1. That's all off that one fight we just saw happen. Nano catches out Privative. You can see the apple slowing down too as he puts his damage into the wall. Won't help much there. A nice little trade out between our mid laners.
A smart ultimate to use from Privative to get that CC immunity to prevent the slow, get away from that field, not wanting a part of any of that action.
So funny though, seeing the way that everything interacts with the Oloran field. Not quite able to lock down Privative in that matchup because he responded quite well with the ult of his own. But this game, just like every other game we've had, is still very close even now at the 14-minute mark, neither team creating much space.
No, definitely not quite yet. And this is interesting though, seeing how the last two games kind of panned out, to see that this is still kind of the same thing. Like, despite having such a different composition, despite starting the game differently with the ganks of Jelly versus no ganks from Jelly, they're still the same end result.
Primal Fury being considered by Big Money, but they drop it once Vultiee commits. There's the Aegis usage from Zen, which means he won't have it when he gets trapped inside the Cataclysm. Easy cleanup from Privative, and Zen can't make his way in to follow up on the low Beaudilla. Another clean pick for Big Money.
Relating, trying to set up his teammates, but doesn't have the necessary follow-up right away. Nano wasn't in position to really look for anything. He didn't have his field up, but the damage was certainly dealt. Big Money walking with their tails between their legs. It's up to Jelly to look for the flank.
Jabami's here as well to try and slow them down, and Primal Fury gets dropped. Jelly, it looks like, has given up on the fight. I think they'll just settle for forcing them to give up on the objective. Big Money fall back, having made a nice defense.
Looking good for them thus far. The first Fury, keep in mind, did go to the Chaos side about 6 minutes ago when they tried to do that 4-player gank for the second time on that solo lane side. Jabami living during that one and doing a good job distracting them this time around as well.
Once again, the Primal Fury being considered. They're actually burning it quite quickly, but Big Money are on their way. They're keeping the Fury leash this time. The cage dropped on the Fury, so it just gets erased. At this point, those monsters are able to walk right over it. Ebog do secure the objective, but the fight on the back end might be a different story. They have so many low health bars. Beaudilla will be the sacrificial lamb, and Ebog might have made it out.
They definitely feel that way as Jabami looking to play for a cleanup. Axiom going to jump in, finds the stun onto Original. Hardbomb going to slow out Jabami in the meantime, but it's up to the kill onto Spartan. He's trying to juke.
But it's not enough. He ends up falling. Axiom finds that kill. Vultiee gets pulled back in for a second in favor of Jelly. Relating, who is entirely out of the picture, comes back in. That's a third kill now for Big Money. And they can keep pushing. It's just the squishes at this point with no one to keep him alive.
Ebog, they got the objective, but at what cost? Losing 3 for only 1 kill. I don't think that was necessarily worth it for them because this game is going to start to trickle into Big Money's side now that they strip away the red buff. They're going to be looking for this tier 1 mid tower, even a Pyromancer to follow potentially.
Maybe this tier 1 tower as well. I'm very surprised by the way Big Money has played the back end of this fight. It seems as if they've gone into full retreat mode when I thought they had a bit of a power play Instead, now they will come over towards Pyromancer. Zen's nearby, but I don't know what he can do on his own. They should still be able to get this objective.
Difficult to contest without Fields of Love, and the disparity between these teams feels like it's in the experience department, specifically from the jungle side. Jelly being level 14, Relating still at level 12, and Odin that falls behind just kind of becomes like this ult bot, right? So he's building into CDR.
And they've not been great ults, can we be honest? Like
the first two was definitely like nowhere near.
I mean, the ult on the Gold Fury just now wasn't good either.
Yeah, that one was just stripped away because of like the way Gold Fury interacts.
Right, but you know that it does that, right?
Yeah.
So I don't know.
He's like trying to do it in hopes that the Gold Fury wouldn't reposition itself in such a way, but not to be the case. It falls down yet again, and this Erlang Shen is really starting to pack in some of the damage numbers.
Jabami makes into the ultimate. That's wild by the thinnest of margins, and he is going to be able to disengage on the back end of that one, Tolly, to somehow get out of there.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised there as well. Tier 1 tower still being looked at as Original. Caught between a rock and a hard place, but he has Relating to back him up.
And this cage is a lot better this time to keep him locked in. But it looks like that might be enough for Jelly to have made his way out of there. Jabami has returned. I believe the teleport just got off in time. And now Spartan is suddenly caught in the Cataclysm and too low. They will drop the Sanctified Field as well, and in comes Relating. And suddenly Jabami's being crit by Nano. After those big suns you're seeing are, and he finds himself a kill.
Oh, Jelly using the Mink, trying to get a little bit closer. Retreats his tier 2 tower, even though Privative is firing a bunch of shots. Even Axiom dropping the suns.
He's made his way in to try and back up the rest of the squad, and Ebog are a little bit too low inside this blue buff pit, but no one with damage can make their way in. Privative finds a strife over the wall that sends Original back to base, and Ebog have made their way out of here. Things have started to get a little messy tonight.
Starting to heat up a little bit. The pan's getting warm. It's time to put your food in there and cook it up, because that Fire Giant going to be looked at very soon. Both of these teams very frisky about that objective.
There's been a lot of fighting happening around these two teams. You know, I've been wanting to talk about this fail knock for Zen, because you normally don't build crit on Cupid. You know, he can feel a bit more ability focused.
Sure.
But the base item is actually really good for Cupid, isn't it? It's a bunch of power and cooldown. That's stuff Cupid would love to have.
Oh, absolutely would love to have that. And on top of that, it's very easy to confirm your next basic attack or ability onto whoever gets hit by the Fields of Love, being mesmerized or being slowed. On top of this, the 20% CDR definitely going to go a long way for sustaining purposes, just dropping hearts at your desire.
Now, I think Vultiee has played well this game totally, but it's not being reflected in the numbers. He's level 11 still, hasn't even gotten to that second relic behind Beaudilla, and that's starting to hurt. He can't be that much of a frontline presence for this team if he's that far behind. They need a way to get him some farm too.
Yeah, it's looking a little grim and dim for Vultiee, but he's got the sovereignty now. He needs to worry about maybe some magical defense, because Privative is being left unchecked in these team fights. A lot of strifes, a lot of unruly magics being kind of thrown out there. That's a scary thing to have to deal with against the level 15 Discordia.
Privative might be in trouble too, with Original rotating in from the jungle. Where he uses that erratic behavior is key. He jumps right back towards the Geb shield and should be okay for now. It looks like Ebog don't want to give up on this. They've got a minion wave here to help.
This tower's very low, Finch, and I expect Ebog to go for it. Off of the next wave, maybe not force it without the wave. It's still asking a little bit too much this early into the game. It's about slow, steady, calculated decisions.
And Original has become that target that they're calculating on. He makes his way back out of there. A little bit of help from Relating with that cage, but Jabami once more. He's in the ultimate form and hunting down this Osiris, who no longer has the Lord of the Afterlife to escape with. But at this point, Ebog should be safe, and Big Money will instead come back towards Oni.
Trying to heal up off of the Cupid hearts. Vultiee gonna kind of keep Jabami into place, though. A double strife into Unruly Magic. Ebog needs to run away.
That's a lot of damage, and Original starting to get even lower at this point. That's the jump down for Relating, hit by the strife for the root. That's a nice Fields of Love. It cripples Big Money, but Jelly, undeterred, keeps up the chase. Relating falls here first. Next up is Original, followed by Vultiee. Axiom gets one, and that's 3 for 0 in favor of Big Money.
Unruly Magic not able to find that fourth kill, and with the Oni Fury up and available, Big Money are going to be able to grab their second Fury of the game.
Oh, Nano's in some trouble now too, as Jelly is caught up to him on the Erlang Shen. I cannot believe they gave up the chase there. but instead they'll settle for the Oni, they'll just fall back. The tier 2 might be a little bit too much for them at this point.
It's definitely too frisky, I think, to go for that kind of dive, but they got what they wanted, Finch, which was that second Fury for themselves. And with this kind of a lead, this is something that you can build off of at 22 minutes into the game. This is where the Erlang Shen is starting to skyrocket now, sitting at level 17, 3 levels ahead of his opposition. Privative not able to really keep up with Nano, but he has the utility that you want out of a Discordia to provide the strifes. With 30% CDR, you got your Mage's Blessing, Chronos Pendant. That one strife around the red buff was the MVP play of the rest of the team fight.
Totally, I think Strife is in top 5 abilities in the game. That's how good I think Strife is.
It's up there.
Like non-ultimate abilities.
There's a lot of abilities, Finch.
Athena, Taunt, Strife. And they're all CC in my mind, obviously, by the way, but I think it's up there on that list. Original in some trouble, though, on the right-hand side. He might be down in a moment if he's not careful. Lord of the Afterlife in place. That does root Axiom and lock him down to the follow-up damage. I don't know how Original had the foresight, but that might have been it. No, it's the turnaround. Axiom finds a double kill. Privative gets one of his own, too, as Nano falls. It's Vultiee who's in trouble next. The slow is there, and Jabami finds a kill, and that all starts by isolating Original by that Totem of Coup.
It just happens too often in this set, Finch, that people are getting isolated. Whether it was Privative in game number 1 to now in this last instance, this is going to allow Big Money Esports to get a rather early Fire Giant. 23 minutes is an early objective on this right side of the map.
And all of these teams are strong enough that if you make a big mistake like that, they can capitalize. Like you said, it's been the difference maker, I think, in all 3 games, because it's otherwise been so close. And this time, a little bit too far forward is Original. But I don't know who keeps Axiom alive in that last fight, but he got every bit of help he could possibly want, stays alive, and finds a double kill to turn that around.
Sitting at 6-0-6, this Hou-Yi pick was so clutch to really control a lot of space. You got your Geb ultimate, you got your stripes to really control a lot of space. Let's add some Hou-Yi Suns to the mix, and then all of a sudden Big Money are running away with this game number 3.
And this is tough, man, because I really do think you can just say that there hasn't been enough from this Odin Tolly. He's 3rd in terms of player damage here from the game, and normally you say, well, at least the cages have been on point, but I don't even think that's particularly true either. The Odin, compared to Jelly's Erlang Shen, it just hasn't worked. He's level 15. I
mentioned how the Osiris-Odin combination would have to really pop off in the early to mid game to allow Ebog any sort of momentum, and unfortunately, they just couldn't get that ball rolling with the early Phantom from Beaudilla, which wasn't even necessary. They already,
You're right.
They were already thinking about, like that was the win condition from Ebog, was this Odin Osiris. They prepared for it, didn't even need to use it, and now they're chilling.
That's a great point, actually, that Big Money had the foresight to be ready for it, and then it didn't even much come up. So that is pretty funny, as this tier 2 in mid should be going down for Big Money. Ebog are going to be making their stand on these Phoenixes, I'd imagine. About another 2 minutes or so for Big Money to make use of this Fire Giant buff and add some extra global gold to the pockets.
If I'm Big Money, I'm not even worried about the Phoenixes during this Fire Giant buff.
Sure.
Like, I'm getting this tower, I'm getting the next Fury, I'm resetting, and they're not going to stop us from getting this next objective with this kind of a gold lead.
You're right. I mean, there's more than enough gold to give them a Fire Giant's worth of push power right on their next one. They'll be up nearly 14,000 if they grab this Fury. Though everyone backing in lane could be a bit dangerous. Now everyone on Ebog knows. But it's so early. We're still a minute away from the next Fury. It should be okay.
Yeah, they're going to have such a big power spike looking at some of the completed items now. Pre-win coming from Original Spartan. But on the opposite side, Big Money, they're not interested in the pre-win of the Arthurian items. Instead, Jabami going for a lot of these cheap, cost-effective items. Spirit's Row, Midgardian Mail, Jade Emperor's Crown. Stone of Binding is really good as well.
Nothing more than 2,500, it feels like, right? For the most part, as Cage comes out from relating, essentially forced into it defensively.
Looking for at least something, honestly, is Big Money.
It can't be Original again, right?
Yeah.
It just can't be him getting picked by himself.
They're going to try to maybe go onto him. We'll receive a little bit of healing. Could be a pincer maneuver, though. Look where Jabami is.
About 55 more seconds on FG2 if they do want to force this. But Jelly's going way back for the wave. Likely they won't make a play without him, even if this mid-Phoenix opens up a bit.
They could try to go for mid here, but I think that Ebog will be prepared for it. Difficult for Big Money to find the angle necessary. So they're going to go for the next best thing, the guaranteed Primal Fury.
Makes Fire Giants that much easier for them on the back end of this as well, Totally, as Big Money has now pushed themselves 15K out in front. That is a ton of gold. That's all still relevant. We're only 26.5 minutes in, nearly 27 at this point. So, I mean, look at Ebog. They don't even have any 6 slotted. They're definitely going to be feeling this deficit.
I love Beaudilla's build and the style of a player he is. He's always thinking about the team, right? Level 1, he gets Phantom. This level gets the Talisman of Energy, thinking about some of the sieges that's about to happen, of how to close out the game a little further. More attack speed, more movement speed. Yeah, sure, I'll take that for all my teammates.
I like that Origno, though, has finally recognized that someone's got to do something about this crit. He's decided to go into the Thorns and answer to these Fail Nots and Wind Demons being bought up all willy-nilly. It should be a lot harder, especially into an Osiris, to get away with it now.
Yes, there's not going to be that much damage dealt onto him, but the Thorns is pre-mitigated damage anyway, so that's going to be an important factor when considering...
That seems good.
Yeah. Between the 16% mitigation of his passive, between the damage reduction that he has of his tether, yeah, Thorns is pretty good.
It's not bad. The big problem for Ebog is still Relating and Vultiee. They're so far behind experience-wise, each down a 4-level deficit, and that is a lot, just in terms of just what the stats you get from leveling up, being able to put some more points in your abilities. Missing out on all of that is going to make it hard to compete. Maybe a little bit less for Relating the points in the abilities. It's probably just the ult, but going to hurt Vultiee a lot as Relating gets caught early on. The apple follows him all the way to the back of the fight and forces him out. Big Money have now bought themselves some time to move right back towards the FG.
Man, they really wanted Relating there. They blew a lot of cooldowns there. Privative and Beaudilla expending their ultimates, but no one from Bog gonna stop this objective from going down. That was free.
And now Origno has to use Lord of the Afterlife defensively to get away from the rest of the team. That will be the Pride Win proc as well. Now on cooldown, and Jabami says, keep up the pressure. Goes right into the ultimate to force the backline from being able to set up any kind of defensive position. Strife lands onto Relating. Axiom gets the kill. They are able to Fields of Love and Sanctified Field at the same time, but Big Money make it out of there, and now they're going to head right for Origno. A 2-man taunt into Strife yet again. Shell keeps Origno alive, but Axiom can't be stopped. That's another kill.
They really want this Finch. They get at least 2. I think they could even go for the end here with how healthy Jelly is, but instead taking the safe road towards the middle. Phoenix with only 3 members alive from Ebog. This is looking very clean, especially if Axiom connects that stun.
Vultiee now low, has to use the dash just to get back towards Zen and away from all the damage. But look where Privative is. He can't find the Strife. Unruly Magic lands, and mid-Phoenix burns to the ground. Big Money, though, still playing things a bit safe and heading back into the jungle.
Privative, sneaky deaky behind the cheeky, looking for that cheeky Strife. Couldn't find it, but at the end of the day, they still get the middle Phoenix after all the towers on the right side of the map. Looking for the last remaining Phoenix on the left to put the Titan at its most vulnerable form. And the way Big Money is closing out this game is just so clean, Finch. Ebog can't even find the right angle to engage.
They're relying so much on these Warriors for their front line, and when they're behind, it's hard for them to do that same kind of work, which makes the job easier for Big Money. Jabami has the ultimate up again. They started the fight with it, and now they're looking to end the fight with it. Way on the back, Relating is able to find a nice cage, but he has to disengage. They're getting a little bit of help as the Suns have dropped down, and Spartan ends up falling on his own. Vultiee has ulted into the backline, and now he's in some trouble, caught out, and can't get the dash off in time. Jelly gets the kill.
They're just in no man's land between Spartan and Vultiee, fighting outside of their Phoenixes, taking that Horus ultimate to their own misery at the end of the day. They might not even go for this Phoenix Finch, they can go for the end.
Relating ends up falling. That means Divine for Axiom. And finally they recognize they can indeed just to move on to the Titan room. Jabami keeps Nano and Zen forced into the fountain, though they find a kill, but it's all too late. Titan goes down, and Big Money clean the set 2-1.
5-0-11 is this Erlang Shen from Jelly, transitioning away from the Pele to a more CC jungler. You gotta love his performance today.
Yeah, just really impressive from everyone on the side of Big Money. So impressed the way they were able to play out of the jungle. I love some of the stuff Jelly was able to do for them. 5-0-11 on your Erlang Shen, but hard not to give a ton of credit to Axiom as well for that Hou Yi.
especially when he was able to turn around that gank on the left side of the map that one time and able to start transitioning into this mid-game lead, surviving on the right side of the map as well. Like, he was put under a decent amount of pressure in these team fights. It's not as though that Ebog forgot that Axiom existed in this game. It's just that there wasn't a possibility to go through the wall that was Big Money.
I think Relating might have picked the wrong time to let up on the pressure from that Awilix. He couldn't keep Axiom in check this time, couldn't find good cages, and they end up dropping. They'll have some more chances, though, later on in the phase, but we have some more sets coming y'all's way. Give us a quick moment. We'll be right back.